What if the pills in your medicine cabinet are damaging your stomach, your kidneys, your heart, while foods from the Bible were already doing the job better and safer? Here's what nobody tells you. Every ibuprofen you take doesn't just kill pain. It shuts down protective compounds your gut and kidneys need to survive. That's not fear-mongering. That's in the clinical literature. Long-term use is linked to ulcers, kidney strain, heart attacks, stroke. Meanwhile, ancient civilizations ate foods that fought inflammation just as hard, without the damage. These aren't myths. Modern labs have tested them head-to-head against synthetic drugs. The results are stunning. Today, 10 of them. Number 5 was once treated like gold, guarded like royalty. Scientists just found out why. Number 1 triggers the exact same pain receptor as liquid ibuprofen. At a fraction of the risk. Want foods and remedies that heal your body every week? Hit subscribe now. Let's get into it. 10 biblical foods that science says fight inflammation as well as, or better than, ibuprofen. Counted down from remarkable to the one that changes how you see your medicine cabinet forever. Number 10. Garlic. The humble bulb ancient healers trusted with infections, heart trouble, and aching joints. Garlic has been used since antiquity, closely related to onions and leeks, and prized across ancient civilizations not for flavor, but for medicine. In fact, it's named directly in Numbers 11.5, where the Israelites, wandering in the wilderness, remembered the garlic they used to eat back in Egypt strongly enough to complain about missing it. This wasn't a random craving. Garlic was medicine long before it was a memory. This wasn't superstition. It was chemistry they didn't have a name for yet. Here's the science. Crush a clove, an enzyme called alliinase kicks in and converts a stable compound into allicin. That's the sharp smell. It's also what shuts down inflammatory pathways in your cells, blocking the same signaling proteins that drive chronic joint pain. Clinical trials show garlic extract lowers inflammatory markers without touching immune function. In one study, women with painful uterine inflammation took garlic tablets daily for 3 months. Pain scores dropped significantly. In another, athletes on allicin-rich garlic extract for just 14 days had noticeably less muscle soreness and oxidative stress after intense workouts. Here's the traditional use. Crush a fresh clove and let it sit for 10 minutes before eating or cooking with it. That waiting period is what allows the allicin to fully form. Add it to food daily, not occasionally. Number 9. Flaxseed. The plant that clothed the ancient world and quietly healed it too. Flaxseed appears throughout Scripture, most memorably in Joshua chapter 2, where Rahab hides the Israelite spies under stalks of flax drying on her rooftop. It was everywhere in daily life, spun into linen, but also eaten as a nutrient-dense seed long before anyone understood why it mattered for the body. This wasn't just a textile crop. It was a food deliberately kept close for what it did internally. Here's the science. Flaxseed is the richest land-based source of alpha-linolenic acid, a short-chain omega-3 your body converts into the same long-chain omega-3s found in fish oil, compounds that calm inflammatory signaling throughout your system. In a clinical trial of 120 patients with active rheumatoid arthritis, ground flaxseed added to an anti-inflammatory diet for 3 months significantly cut joint tenderness, morning stiffness, and pain. Separate research found flaxseed oil reduced pelvic pain and inflammation from endometriosis about as well as over-the-counter ibuprofen without the gut damage. Here's the traditional use. Grind whole flax seeds fresh or use cold-pressed flaxseed oil. Whole seeds pass through your digestive system largely intact, so grinding is what unlocks the benefit. Number 8. Dates. The fruit so central to ancient life that an entire city was named after it. Deuteronomy 34:3 refers to Jericho as the City of Palms, a nickname it carried because of the date palms that surrounded it. Psalm 92 goes further, comparing the righteous to a flourishing palm tree, a symbol of strength, nourishment, and endurance. Dates weren't just eaten. They were seen as sustaining life itself. This wasn't poetic exaggeration. It was observation of something real. Here's the science. The AGW date is loaded with flavonoids, phenolics, and organic acids that directly inhibit the same enzymes ibuprofen targets. In lab testing, AGW date extracts blocked inflammatory enzyme activity and reduced lipid damage in cells, with purified compounds showing potency comparable to standard synthetic anti-inflammatories. In animal studies, date extract protected the liver and lungs from tissue damage caused by high-dose NSAID like diclofenac. Other research found date seed extract reduced inflammatory markers in the brain itself, reaching tissue many drugs can't. Here's the traditional use. IT 3 to 5 whole dates a day, ideally the deeper colored, denser varieties. That's where the concentration of these compounds is highest. Number 7. Raw honey, called liquid gold in ancient medicine. And for good reason. Honey is mentioned throughout Scripture as a symbol of abundance and nourishment. The Promised Land itself is described in Exodus 3:8 as flowing with milk and honey. Samson eats wild honey straight from a lion's carcass in Judges 14. It wasn't just sweetener. It was treated as something closer to medicine. This wasn't just about taste. It was deliberate use of something the body responded to. Here's the science. Raw, unprocessed honey is packed with enzymes, organic acids, and polyphenols that block a key inflammatory signaling pathway, stopping the release of pro-inflammatory proteins. In animal studies, honey reduced acute inflammation and swelling with potency matching the standard drug indomethacin. In wound healing, honey does something drugs can't. It calms excess inflammation while encouraging tissue repair, all while forming a protective barrier against microbes. Here's the traditional use. Use raw, unfiltered honey. Never the processed kind, either taken directly by the spoonful or applied topically to minor wounds and burns. Number 6. Coriander, the bitter herb of the Exodus, grown across the very lands the Bible calls home. Coriander seed is named directly in Exodus 16:31, where the miraculous manna that fed the Israelites in the wilderness is described as looking like coriander seed. It was a familiar, everyday plant to people living in Egypt, Syria, and Palestine, common enough to become the reference point for describing something entirely new. This wasn't a random comparison. It was a plant people already trusted. Here's the science. Coriander essential oil is rich in linalool, plus smaller active compounds. In lab testing, it significantly reduced inflammatory swelling within just 4 hours, cutting key inflammatory proteins by a wide margin, comparable to therapeutic doses of ibuprofen. Even more notable, coriander oil protects the liver. In studies where ibuprofen caused liver cell damage, adding coriander oil alongside it significantly reduced that toxicity. This ancient herb may protect against the very drug it's being compared to. Here's the traditional use. Brew crushed coriander seeds as a tea, or add the fresh leaf and ground seed generously into meals. Consistency matters more than quantity here. Number 5. Frankincense. The resin so valuable that wise men carried it across a desert as a gift fit for a king. Frankincense appears in Matthew 2:11 as one of the 3 gifts brought to the infant Jesus, presented alongside gold. And that's not a coincidence of value. In the ancient world, frankincense was traded along the same routes as gold and spices, sometimes worth more by weight than precious metals, because it was rare, difficult to harvest, and believed to carry real power. For centuries, that power was treated as symbolic, something sacred, used in temple worship and incense, but not something anyone thought of as medicine in the way we define it today. Here's where it gets interesting. It was one of the most potent anti-inflammatory substances available to the ancient world. They just didn't have the language for why. Modern science found the compound, ACPA, in the resin's boswellic acids. It targets an inflammatory enzyme ibuprofen doesn't even touch, the one responsible for leukotrienes, the molecules that drive joint destruction and swelling. Multiple clinical trials show standardized frankincense extracts relieve pain and improve joint function in osteoarthritis patients, comparable to prescription drugs like celecoxib and valdecoxib. In a head-to-head trial, frankincense took longer to kick in, up to 2 weeks. But here's the part that should stop you. Its benefits kept lasting after people stopped taking it. The synthetic drugs' effects disappeared the moment they stopped. Here's the traditional use. Frankincense resin can be taken as a standardized extract or brewed as a resin tea. But give it time. Unlike a pill that works in an hour, this is something your body needs a couple of weeks to fully respond to. Real quick, I want to pause here, because if you've made it this far, you're already seeing something most people never stop to notice. Garlic, flaxseed, dates, honey. coriander, frankincense. None of these were random. Every single one shows up in Scripture for a reason, and every single one has now been tested in a lab and found to do something real. And we're not at the one that is actually going to surprise you. Let's get back to the list. Number 4. Ginger. The root ancient traders carried across continents, and one of the most studied anti-inflammatories on this entire list. Ginger has a long history in Near Eastern and Ayurvedic traditional medicine as a food used specifically for pain and inflammation, traded along the same ancient routes that carried other spices through biblical lands. It wasn't just for flavor, it was reached for specifically when the body hurt. This wasn't guesswork, it was a pattern people trusted for thousands of years before anyone could explain the mechanism. Here's the science. Ginger's active compounds, gingerols and shogails, do something ibuprofen can't. They block 2 inflammatory pathways at once, the same 2 that produce prostaglandins and leukotrienes, giving ginger broader reach than standard NSAID. And critically, these compounds inhibit the inflammatory enzyme without touching the protective enzyme that guards your stomach lining. None of ibuprofen's gut damage. In a randomized, double-blind trial of 120 patients with moderate to severe osteoarthritis, daily ginger extract beat placebo and matched ibuprofen for reducing pain and stiffness. In another trial, ginger powder given after wisdom tooth surgery matched ibuprofen for controlling swelling and pain. Here's the traditional use. Fresh ginger root, grated into tea or food daily. The fresh root carries more of the active compounds than the dried powder. Number 3. Fermented grapes. The fruit of the vine, central to biblical feasts, and a hidden anti-inflammatory powerhouse. Grapes and wine appear constantly throughout Scripture. From Noah planting a vineyard in Genesis 9:20 to wine used at the Last Supper in Matthew 26. The vine wasn't just a food source. It held a place at the center of celebration, covenant, and daily life across the ancient Near East. This wasn't just cultural tradition, it carried something the body responded to. Here's the science. Fermented grapes are rich in resveratrol, a compound that activates a cellular pathway linked to reduced chronic inflammation. Lab testing shows resveratrol binds directly to the same inflammatory enzyme ibuprofen targets, and the concentration needed to shut down inflammatory gene activity was actually lower than what ibuprofen or aspirin required. Greater potency at the cellular level. Even more interesting, animal studies combining resveratrol with ibuprofen found a synergistic anti-inflammatory effect, while resveratrol protected the liver from the damage ibuprofen alone caused. Here's the traditional use. A small glass of dry red wine or grape polyphenol extract for a non-alcoholic option. Resveratrol concentration is highest in the skin, which is why red wine carries more of it than white. Number 2. Pomegranate. The fruit so significant it's woven into the design of the temple itself. Pomegranates are mentioned throughout the Old Testament. Exodus 28:33-34 describes them embroidered onto the hem of the high priest's robe, alternating with golden bells, worn specifically for temple service. Solomon's temple was decorated with pomegranate carvings. This wasn't a fruit chosen at random for decoration. It was chosen because it was already understood as something valuable, something tied to vitality and life. This wasn't just artistic symbolism. It turns out the fruit itself was doing something worth honoring. Here's the science. Pomegranates are dense with punicalagins, concentrated in the peel and juice, which break down in the body into ellagic acid. In lab models, these compounds shut down the same inflammatory pathway ibuprofen targets, suppressing the enzymes and signaling molecules responsible for pain and swelling. Here's what makes pomegranate stand apart. Instead of damaging the stomach lining like NSAID do, pomegranate extract actively protects the gut, guarding against the same mucosal damage ibuprofen causes. In a human clinical trial, subjects who took standardized pomegranate extract showed measurable ellagic acid in their bloodstream within hours. Separate research found ellagic acid shifts the body's inflammatory balance at the immune cell level, dialing down inflammatory signaling, boosting anti-inflammatory activity, targeting chronic joint pain without the cardiovascular or kidney risks tied to long-term NSAID use. Here's the traditional use. Drink fresh pomegranate juice, or eat the arils directly, including some of the white pith. That's where a meaningful share of the punicalagins are concentrated, not just in the juice itself. And here we are, number 1. the one I saved for last, extra virgin olive oil. The oil used to anoint kings and priests. The oil burned in the temple lamps. The oil poured over wounds by the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, not as a symbolic gesture, but as actual first-century medicine. For thousands of years across the biblical world, olive oil wasn't just food. It was medicine, currency, and sacrament all at once. For most of that history, people assumed the value was just tradition, something sacred, because it was old. Nobody could explain why it actually worked. Here's where it gets extraordinary. The compound responsible is oleocanthal, and it doesn't exist in a whole olive. It's created the moment olives are crushed and pressed through a reaction that only happens during extraction. That's why only fresh, high-quality extra virgin olive oil carries it, and why refined or processed oils don't. You can taste it. Oleocanthal creates a sharp, peppery bite at the back of your throat. Professional tasters use that cough to measure how potent a batch really is. And here's the detail that should stop you. Oleocanthal triggers the exact same receptor in your throat that liquid ibuprofen does. Not a metaphor. The identical biological receptor. In lab testing, at equal concentration, oleocanthal blocked far more inflammatory enzyme activity than ibuprofen managed at that same concentration. Researchers calculated that roughly 50 milliliters of high phenolic extra virgin olive oil, about 3 tablespoons, delivers anti-inflammatory activity comparable to roughly 10% of a standard adult ibuprofen tablet. Consumed daily, that's real, measurable relief, without the stomach, kidney, or cardiovascular risks tied to long-term NSAID use. But olive oil doesn't work alone. Oleuropein and hydroxytyrosol work alongside oleocanthal, shutting down the same inflammatory network from multiple angles, reducing pain-driving proteins while preventing the platelet clumping that raises heart attack and stroke risk with long-term drug use. And here's where the whole list comes back together. Garlic disrupts the signal at the genetic level. Frankincense blocks an enzyme pathway ibuprofen doesn't even touch. Ginger hits 2 inflammatory pathways at once. Pomegranate protects the gut while it heals, and olive oil ties it together, hitting the same receptor as the drug itself, with none of the damage. Not coincidence. Or, if it is, it's the most precisely engineered coincidence in the history of nutritional science. Here's the traditional use. 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh, high-phenolic extra virgin olive oil daily, uncooked, drizzled over food so heat doesn't degrade the very compound that makes it work. 10 foods. Thousands of years of accumulated observation. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The people who wrote these foods into scripture, who traded them, who wore them woven into priestly garments, weren't primitive. They were paying attention. They watched what healed the body and what sustained it, and they built ritual, tradition, and daily life around those observations, long before anyone had a word for inflammation. And now, modern science. With its clinical trials, its double-blind studies, its molecular biology, keeps arriving at the same conclusions. Garlic blocks inflammatory signaling at the cellular level. Flaxseed feeds the body the same omega-3s doctors recommend today. Dates protect organs from the very damage NSAID cause. Honey calms inflammation while helping tissue repair itself. Coriander protects the liver. Frankincense blocks a pathway ibuprofen can't even touch. Ginger hits 2 inflammatory pathways at once. Fermented grapes outperform the drugs at the cellular level. Pomegranate shields the gut while it heals. And olive oil triggers the exact same receptor as the drug in your medicine cabinet. The text was right. It just never explained the mechanism. Because the mechanism was never the point. Drop a comment and tell me which one surprised you most. I read every single comment. If you haven't subscribed to Nature's Codex, hit that button now and ring the bell so you never miss what's coming next. We post every week and we're just getting started. See you in the next one.